There's a playlist most people have, but almost nobody talks about. It's not the one you put on at a party, not the one you play in the car when you're in a good mood and the windows are down. This one is different. This one only comes out at a certain hour, usually late, usually alone, and every song on it is sad. Sad in a way that feels like it was written specifically for you, for something you haven't even fully put into words yet. And here's the strange part: you don't play it because you want to feel worse. You play it because somehow, inexplicably, it makes you feel better. That's what we're going to be talking about today. So, why do we do this? It seems like it shouldn't make sense. If you're already feeling heavy, already carrying something, grief, loneliness, the kind of sadness that doesn't have a clean name, the logical thing would be to reach for something bright, something that pulls you in the other direction. But most of us don't do that. Most of us, when we're hurt in a quiet way, we reach for the music that matches it. We reach for the slow songs, the minor keys, the voice that sounds like it's been through something, and we turn it up or we put it in our headphones and we just let it in. There's something worth paying attention to because we don't do this with other feelings. When we're anxious, we don't seek out more anxious things. When we're angry, we don't always want more intensity. But sadness seems to want company, and music, it turns out, is very good at being that company. Part of it, I think, comes down to something very simple and very human. When you're sad, one of the most exhausting things in the world is trying to explain it, to find the words, to make someone else understand what's sitting inside you when you barely understand it yourself. Most of the time, you can't. Most of the time, you try and it comes out wrong, or possibly smaller than it actually is, or the other person nods, but you can tell they don't quite feel the weight of it. Music doesn't ask you to explain anything. A song in the right key, with the right tempo, with a lyric that lands in exactly the right place. It just knows, or at least it feels like it knows. It meets you where you are without requiring anything from you. No words, no context, no performance of being okay or not okay. There is a kind of relief in that, a quiet exhale. The feeling of finally being in a room where you don't have to hold yourself together so tightly. Psychologists have a phrase for this. They call it emotional validation. The idea that having your feelings reflected back to you, even by something that isn't alive, that creates a sense of being witnessed. And being witnessed, turns out, is one of the things human beings need most. We don't always need solutions. We don't always need advice. Sometimes we just need to feel like what we're carrying is real, that it exists, that it matters. Sad music does that. Quietly, it says, yes, this is real. I feel it too. But there is something else going on that's even more interesting. Because there's a difference between feeling sad and being overwhelmed by sadness. And somehow listening to sad music creates just enough distance between the two. Think about it this way. When sadness comes from inside you, from your own life, your own losses, your own unanswered questions, it can feel formless, pressing, like something with no edges, no shape, no place to put it. It just fills the room. But when that same feeling comes through music, it has a container. It has a beginning and an end. It lasts 3 minutes and 40 seconds, and then it's over. The sadness is real, but it also held. It's held inside a melody, inside someone else's voice, inside a structure you didn't have to build yourself. That structure matters more than we realize. It gives us a way to experience the feeling without being consumed by it. To look at it from a slight remove, like watching something difficult through glass. You can see it clearly, you can feel it, but there's just enough separation that you don't drown. This is exactly the part of why sad films work the same way. Why people will sit in a dark cinema and cry at a story that has nothing to do with their own life and walk out feeling lighter than when they walked in. The emotion is real. The distance is also real. And together they create something that pure avoidance never could. A kind of gentle release. Researchers have spent a surprising amount of time trying to understand this. Studies in music psychology have found that people who listen to sad music when they're feeling low often report feeling better afterward. Not just the same, but measurably better. And the reason they give is interesting. They talk about feeling less alone. They talk about the music helping them process something they couldn't process on their own. They talk about a sense of beauty in the sadness itself, as if the music transformed the feeling into something they could actually appreciate rather than just endure. Sad music isn't a modern coping mechanism. It's something ancient. It's one of the oldest ways human beings have had of sitting together inside a feeling that's too big for words. There's one more layer to this that I find the most quietly profound. A lot of sadness, when you trace it back, has loneliness at its core. Not always the loneliness of being physically alone, but the loneliness of feeling like no one quite understands what you're going through. Like your experience is somehow specific to you in a way that can't be shared. Sad music dismantles that feeling without making a fuss about it. When you're listening to a song that moves you, really moves you, and you know that millions of other people have listened to that same song and felt the same shift in their chest, something changes. Your private sadness becomes something shared, not explained, not solved, not discussed, just shared, silently. Across time and distance, with strangers you'll never meet who are sitting in their own rooms, in their own late hours, feeling something they also couldn't name. There's a community in that, invisible, wordless, but real. And I think that's the deepest answer to the question that we started with. We reach for sad music not because we want to suffer, but because suffering alone is the hardest version of it. Sad music takes something isolating and makes it, in some small but meaningful way, communal. It says, you are not the only one. Other people have been here. Other people have felt exactly this. in the dark, alone, not knowing what to do with it. And they made it through, and they turned it into something beautiful. So, the next time you find yourself reaching for the sad playlist, the one you'd be slightly embarrassed to explain to someone, maybe don't second guess it. Maybe what you're doing is actually one of the most human things there is. Finding your way through a feeling by letting someone else's voice carry it for a while. Borrowing a shape for something shapeless. Sitting inside the sadness just long enough to remind yourself that you know how to come out the other side. Music doesn't fix anything, but it does something almost as valuable. It stays. If this is something you've felt before, that strange pull towards the sad songs when the night gets quiet, I'd love to know. Leave a comment below. You don't have to, but leave it, because these conversations are always more interesting when more voices are in them. And if you're new here, this is the kind of thing we talk about on this channel. The quiet, unspoken parts of being human that don't always make it into everyday conversation. If that sounds like your kind of place, you're welcome to stay. I'll see you in the next one.